Hi, I'm Lucy of Lucy Williamson Nutrition and founder of The Gut Project, and I'm really delighted that you've joined me today to find out more about gut health. So, my story is that I started off in life as a vet, and it's that journey from vet to nutritionist that has really been my inspiration in trying to really reconnect our health back to real food. And when I say real food, I mean food that's been farmed with nature in healthy soils, really nutrient rich, minimally processed, and that kind of food is just absolutely fabulous for our gut health and for our overall wellness, which is really my specialisation as a nutritionist. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the wonderful ways that we can nurture our gut health and literally rewild our health. And I'm going to show you some fabulous easy recipes for doing it as well. So this is really a taster for my gut health course, which I have written with another nutritionist, and we have a fabulous chef on board as well. And on that course, what we do is we take you through the foods that nurture gut health, the lifestyle, getting enough sleep, how to de-stress, getting out in nature, all those extra things as well as food that will really benefit your gut health. I do the course live. I'm a real person, as you can see, joining me today in my kitchen. And the other thing I do as a nutritionist is I work with farmers and food producers, particularly those that are farming with nature positive systems, helping them to understand the health benefits of the food that they're producing, and we connect you with those on the gut health course as well. So let's just have a think then. Gut health. So there are lots of different words that you have probably come across. The microbiome is the big one, and this refers to the billions of bacteria that are inside our large intestine. How do they get there? Well, believe it or not, when we're born, every baby is sterile before it's born, and that process, that very natural process of childbirth, is where the first bacteria come from. And then depending on how we eat and our lifestyle as we go through life, really impacts our microbiome and how it develops as we go through life. But the great news is people like Tim Spector, a well-known gut health expert in the UK, has done some fabulous research that shows even if our gut health isn't that great, if we take on board some of these tips that I'm going to tell you about, in as little as 2 days, we can really transform our microbiome and really begin to help our gut health and our overall wellness. So those bacteria then that we have in our large intestine, and we need to think about bacteria as actually being good. We've been brought up to be concerned about bacteria, but actually we've evolved with them. If you think about it, bacteria were on the planet long before we were. So we've evolved together and we need each other. And by choosing foods that nurture our bacteria in our large intestine, they then go on to use those foods in many different ways. They release the nutrients from those foods and make them more available for us to absorb, for starters. And actually, before I go any further, a really nice analogy there is when you think about the healthy soils that our food grows in. A healthy soil should have absolutely billions of microbes in it, bacteria and yeasts and fungi. In fact, in 1 teaspoon of soil, there are more microbes than the population of people on this earth. So that gives you an idea as to how many microbes there are there. And those microbes in the soil make it easier for the plant roots to absorb nutrients. So we get really healthy, nutrient-rich crops growing, particularly when we're thinking sort of organic soils. And it's the same with our own intestine. If we have a lot of lovely different bacteria and yeasts that form our microbiome, then that really helps to unlock the nutrients in our food. So I've got lots of different things I want to show you, but for example, I've made these oat cakes this morning. It's a really easy recipe made from British oats, and there's also some British grown quinoa in there too. And those foods are really rich in fibre. So fibre is found in plants. It's a type of carbohydrate, but it's a carbohydrate that we can't digest ourselves. We rely on our bacteria inside our digestive system to ferment that fibre. And as they do that, they actually get their energy so that they can go on and multiply, which is what we want them to do. And they also, excuse me, and they also produce fabulous products for us, which I call postbiotics. And those products are the really health-giving products. So they have really important roles in reducing inflammation in our bodies and helping our immunity, and I'm going to go on to talk about that a little later on. So by ensuring we've got plenty of fibre in our diet, that's one key thing in promoting our gut health. The other nutrients, though, that those bacteria really benefit from are antioxidants. And actually, I've got here a bowl of coleslaw that I've made, and I've made it using some red cabbage, which is very seasonal at the moment, and some bright orange carrots. So the bright colour in vegetables is where the what we call the phytonutrients, those really important antioxidants, are. And actually our gut bacteria activate these antioxidants. Why do we need them? So antioxidants you can think of as anti-aging nutrients. Again, they help to calm down inflammation in our body. They're constantly repairing cell damage, which actually happens every day. So they keep our skin looking healthier, they keep our immune system stronger. They're hugely important for all our body systems, and our gut bacteria actually activate a lot of those antioxidants in the plants that we eat. So I hope you're starting to get a feel for the fact that we need to have these lovely nutrient-rich plants in our diet, which is why we're very much thinking of a plant-based diet these days. But it's not just plants that are important for gut health. So what plant-based means is we want to be having about 70% of the food that we eat, or the food that's on our plate, coming from plants. But that other 30% is just as important for our gut health if it comes from foods like dairy, a little bit of really high quality meat once a week maybe, and fish, a great source of antioxidants too. So it's a whole balanced diet that we are looking at. So, and the other thing I want to mention is fermented foods. So I have here one of my favourite examples of fermented food is a raw apple cider made by William Chase's family on their farm in Herefordshire. So Willie's raw apple cider vinegar. And what's happening in here, in this very natural probiotic, is that the natural yeasts and bacteria that are present in the apples during the course of being fermented, the bacteria and the yeast multiply, which are beneficial to us. So probiotics are basically just living bacteria and yeasts that are really beneficial to our health. So for a start, they're in here because this is raw, it's not pasteurized, so the bacteria and the yeast is still very active. But they're also in there fermenting of the sugars in the apples. They're producing those really beneficial products just as they do inside us. So in the case of raw apple cider vinegar, those bacteria are producing a compound called acetate. And acetate is really important for our overall health, for our digestive wellness. It can be helpful in controlling our appetite, so in controlling weight issues. And also, this kind of vinegar is far less acidic than others. So apple cider vinegar is really gentle on our digestive system, and I'm going to show you some of my favourite ways to use it. So probiotics then, why not just get your probiotics from food rather than taking a supplement? And apple cider vinegar is a great way of doing that. Another naturally probiotic food is just natural yogurt. BioLive yogurt has at least 3 or 4 different types of bacteria in it. Or kefir, a fermented milk drink that you may have come across, absolutely fabulous type of natural probiotic. So what I want to go on and tell you about is some of the benefits to our overall health that our microbiome gives us, and then we're going to really get into all the lovely food and look at some recipes together. So one of the key things with our microbiome that I love to start talking about is our immune system. I'm a mother, I've got an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old at home, and since I really have developed my knowledge on gut health and slightly changed the way we're eating, I've found that our immune system, particularly for my children in and out of school, has just been so much stronger. And the reason for that is that the cells of our immune system, 80% of them, so a lot, 80% of the cells of our immune system actually sit in the wall of our gut. And what that means is that from the moment we're born and right through our lives, our bacteria that are sitting within the gut are actually influencing those cells of our immune system. And a nice way to look at it is they're actually teaching it what to react against and what not to react against. So we want our immune system to react against bad bacteria, bad infection. What we don't want it to do is to overreact, and in that case what happens, we get a lot of inflammation going on in the gut, or we get inflammation going on generally in the body. It's the root of issues like irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, other autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. But inflammation in our bodies in general is at the root of much chronic disease. So type 2 diabetes, heart disease and stroke, cancer, they obviously have a lot of different causes, but at the root of them all, of a lot of this chronic disease, is inflammation. And making sure that our immune system is responding as it should do is really helpful to reduce inflammation in our bodies. So often we talk about an anti-inflammatory diet, and eating to nurture our gut health really is a way of eating an anti-inflammatory diet. So gut health to boost your immunity, great at this time of year, and certainly these fermented products like sauerkraut or the Willys apple cider vinegar, the kefir I mentioned, even mature cheese is a fabulous probiotic, lots of natural bacteria and yeasts in there too. So immune system, inflammation I've touched on, and how it can reduce the inflammation in our body and why that's important. And another biggie is our mood, because our gut bacteria, one of those compounds that they produce for us when they ferment the fibre and they use those antioxidants in our diet, one of the products they produce for us is required to make our happiness hormone, serotonin. And you've probably heard about the gut-brain axis and how our gut is actually connected to our brain, which it absolutely is. And all that I'm telling you, by the way, is based on beautiful science. I'm very much a nutritionist that bases everything I say according to current research. And so our happiness hormone then, our gut bacteria required to produce it. So of course that's going to help with our mood and balancing our mood. But they have many other functions as well, including making one of the compounds that's required to send nerve signals from our gut up to our brain. So all sorts of really important roles that they have. And another one which we don't quite understand yet is that they do definitely help us to control our weight. We're still trying to learn why that is. They also are important in preventing allergy. And the way I like to describe this is that the cells that line our digestive system if you imagine each of my hand is a cell lining your digestive system, they actually are glued together like this so that there are no gaps between each cell, and those junctions we call tight junctions, and they literally require a chemical like a cement to make sure they stay tight together. And guess who? Our gut bacteria actually produce part of the compound that's required to do that. So if you've had a bit of a digestive episode, if you've had an upset stomach, if you've had surgery, if you've had to be on antibiotics, by the way, which are wonderful and needed, but of course they knock out the good bacteria as well. Any of that can actually knock out our gut bacteria, which means that this tight junction between the cells that line our gut may not work as well, and you get these leaks, which is where the term leaky gut comes from. And then we start to absorb things that we shouldn't, like large proteins like gluten, for example, and all of a sudden we can have an allergy that we didn't have before. So I hope that gives you a really good idea of why our microbiome is so important, and that gut health is a huge topic that really affects our overall wellness. It's just so exciting, and I'm really, really pleased to be able to share it with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some recipes, and I'm going to use my recipe book in front of me here to do that. So I've mentioned the oatcakes. Now, when we talk about enjoying unprocessed foods, I think this is a really great example, because if we were to buy oatcakes in the supermarket, they seem to be a really healthy food, and actually they are a pretty healthy food to buy. But still, if you look on the back of the packet, I guarantee there'll be ingredients in there that you don't know what they are. And the joy of making them yourself is that you're not having to add in all these additives for shelf life, and because we're using really wholesome ingredients. So one of the ingredients that I use so much in my general cooking, but also in these oatcakes, is quinoa. And this particular type of quinoa, if you can see here, it's called puffed quinoa, and it's I get mine from this fabulous company called Hodmedod's in Essex. And what they do is they're a company that are encouraging farmers locally to farm with nature. And so all these grains that I'm using today have literally been farmed 2 hours down the road from where I live. But they have a great selection of grains and pulses. I've got a lovely bag of their Essex grown oats here. And I would just really encourage you, when you're sourcing your food, to just have a look on the packet and see where it was grown, see where it's come from. Because the more seasonal it is and the closer to home it's being grown, the more nutrient rich it will be, because there's no long transport distances, and in that time nutrients really start to disappear. So getting back to this oatcake recipe, these oatcakes, and you'll have the recipe if you're watching this video, and if not, it's on my website, simply made from British oats, puffed quinoa, both fabulous sources of fibre, especially quinoa, and I'm going to be talking about this a little bit more as we go. And then the oatcakes also have butter in them. Now, you mustn't be scared of saturated fats. We all need a little bit of saturated fat in our diet, really great for our hormones. So they have a little bit of butter in them, but they also have some cold-pressed rapeseed oil in them, and I love to get mine from Hill Farm Oils in Suffolk, and the reason is I've visited their farm. It's a fabulous place. They absolutely love nature and wildlife, and they've got all sorts of brilliant initiatives going on the farm to encourage biodiversity. And what they've found is, in analysing their cold-pressed rapeseed oil, so very naturally, literally the seeds are just pressed, no chemicals added, and what they found is that their oil is so nutrient rich because of the very natural way that they're farming. And they also produce these lovely oils that have extra flavours in them, like truffle and garlic and chilli. And so it's a great way of getting a quick flavour burst in your cooking. And I'm a busy mum. I need to be able to produce nutritious recipes very quickly. So you'll see from the recipe that there are oats and quinoa and butter and rapeseed oil, and that's pretty much it in these oat cakes, and a little bit of whole grain flour as well. So when we're thinking about gut health, we're thinking about that all-important fibre. And when I mentioned the flour that's in this oat cake recipe, that's another thing that you can do in your cooking generally, is to start looking for more traditional flours, whole grain flours, where none of the nutrients have been taken out. So oat cakes are fabulous. You can have them for breakfast with marmalade and honey. You can have them for lunch with cheese or on a side. You can nibble on them as a snack. Just a really, really handy recipe. So I'm going to move on now to the fermented foods. And I mentioned the Willys apple cider that I love. One of the things that I find really helpful is just to make a great vinaigrette. So instead of using lemon juice, apple cider vinegar has quite a citrus flavour to it. So you can substitute this for lemon juice in a lot of different recipes. So in this little jar, I've got some of our local honey, and I'm just going to add a few, probably about a couple of, just 1 tablespoon of the apple cider vinegar. And then I've got here some of the garlic infused Hill Farm oil, cold pressed rapeseed oil, and then it's about 3 or 4 tablespoons of that. And then just give it a really quick shake, and that just forms a fabulously healthy vinaigrette that you can dress salads with, or you can put it over warm roasted vegetables. Is another really nice way to enjoy it, and I'm going to use that shortly in another recipe. But the great thing about this then is you've got the fermented probiotic of the apple cider vinegar. You've got really healthy cold pressed rapeseed oil, a great source of plant omega-3 and plant sterols as well, which help to keep cholesterol levels low. So that's, but certainly talking about gut health, the natural probiotic from the fermented apple cider vinegar, the raw apple cider vinegar, is just fabulous for our microbiome in there. Another thing that I like to do with raw apple cider vinegar is make just a really quick, either a dip or a marinade. So this is some organic Yeo Valley yogurt, actually, from Somerset. And what I like to do with this, and I've slightly splattered my yogurt around, is a few spoonfuls of yogurt. And then again, just a couple of teaspoons probably of the apple cider vinegar in there. And just give that a mix around. And then what I would do is add some peanut butter into there, and it makes it a little bit thicker. And that just makes a fabulously quick weekend dip. So you've got the probiotic of the live yogurt, you've got the probiotic of the apple cider vinegar, a little bit of peanut butter as long as you don't have a nut allergy. Peanut's great for fibre. And that's a really, really healthy dip. But the other thing you can do with that is you can use it to marinate fish. So perhaps a nice little salmon steak, just marinate it in this quite citrus apple cider vinegar mix of a marinade, and that will really tenderize it and give it a lovely flavour once it's cooked. So that's quick and easy ways to use apple cider vinegar. The other thing I do, and I've got one on the go here, is every day I enjoy a lovely hot mug of water with 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar in it as well. And it's just a lovely, I normally do it first thing in the morning, just a lovely way to start the day and to really get your microbiome going first thing in the morning. So the other recipe that I want to share with you is a salad bowl, and I'm just going to get that from my fridge. And what this is a fantastic lunch bowl of wholesome quinoa, and I made some up this morning, and it's really, really quick and easy to cook. You just boil up your quinoa with twice the amount of water for 10 minutes, and then you let it sit for 10 minutes with the lid on to continue to absorb the liquid, and eventually you end up with this lovely grainy texture, a bit like couscous. But the lovely thing with quinoa is that it's really rich in protein and fibre, so extremely good for our gut health. So what I've got in the bowl already is some seasonal leaves. I've got some spinach in there and the last of the beetroot leaves from the garden actually. And then I'm going to put in some of the quinoa for starters. There we go. And then I have got some roasted beetroot that I have just been doing before I came on. So I just put some balsamic vinegar, but actually you could use apple cider vinegar as well on the beetroot, with a little of cold pressed rapeseed oil, and I'm going to add that in as well to my bowl here. And the beetroot, I hope you can see, I'm just going to move my chopping board over here, but when we think of a beetroot, it's just absolutely bursting with antioxidants. So if I just chop into this one here, just that fabulous bright purple, and a lot of the antioxidants that I was talking about earlier that are so good for that anti-aging property that they have. A lot of the antioxidants in plants are in the skin on the outside, and also of course in that bright purple pigment. So a great reason for buying organic fruit and veg, if you can, is because the antioxidants in plants, interestingly, are actually their own natural defense against disease. So if you're buying organic where they haven't been sprayed with antifungal fungicides and other chemicals, the plant is having to work harder to fight disease, and so it's producing more antioxidants. So therefore, when we eat it, that's a lot more antioxidants for us. So it's a much organic fruit and veg is more nutrient rich in that way. So I'm really happy I've got the beetroot in my lunch bowl. And the other thing that I'm going to pop in there is some seasonal cauliflower. And don't forget, when you use cauliflower, to use the leaves as well. We don't want any waste. So they always have some nice green leaves on the outside, and I've just top tip to keep the nutrients in the veg, because remember, we're thinking gut health and we want the nutrient rich food. A top tip is just to steam it very lightly, very quickly, and then plunge it into cold water. And in that way, what happens is the leaves keep their lovely bright green colour. So again, nice and nutrient rich. And then I've actually just got some peas. So I could not cope without frozen peas, not seasonal all the time, but fortunately we can have our British peas all year round. And by freezing food, it really locks the nutrients in. So still a really good source of good quality food. So I'm going to put some peas in there as well. I am going to pop on the top my naturally probiotic vinaigrette that I've made earlier. There we go. And I'm going to add in some grated carrot as well to that. This is turning into a really lovely big bowl of lunch. And lastly, what I love to use a lot of is a lot of different kinds of seeds. So I'm just going to sprinkle these roasted seeds. I've got pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds and sesame seeds, I think, in this batch. Because with our gut health, one of the most important things that you can do is include a large variety of plants in your diet. And they actually say 30 different plants every week if you can manage it. So actually in this bowl that I have made, I'm just going to reach over here to grab a fork. We have quinoa, we have spinach leaves, beetroot leaves and the beetroot, cauliflower, peas, carrots, rapeseed oil, apple cider vinegar, 3 different types of seeds. So I've lost count, but there's certainly a lot within that. And you can see just how easy that was to make. So that's a really delicious lunch. Pretty, if you're buying seasonal, then you're buying the veg when it's cheaper as well. So not an expensive dish, a very quick and easy dish. Perhaps enjoy it with one of the oat cakes as well. So that's the main recipes that I wanted to show you. Also, don't forget we can get antioxidants from some lovely teas. And I love a specific type of tea called sea buckthorn tea, which is not everyone has heard of. But sea buckthorn is a British berry. It's bright orange. It's, think blueberries, but much more packed with antioxidants even than blueberries are. It's absolutely overflowing with vitamin C. So I'm going to enjoy a cup of sea buckthorn tea a little bit later on. So that's all I really wanted to talk to you about and cover today in this half-hour taster session. I'd absolutely love it if you would like to join me on my gut health course. And this is the kind of thing that we do, but we go through it in much more detail. And every week, once a week for an hour, you join me live and we unpick different parts of gut health. So we talk about how we can de-stress, because carrying too much stress also really affects our microbiome, making sure we get enough sleep, making sure we keep on the move. Doesn't have to be a hard workout in the gym, but just getting out and walking in nature. And then we go into a lot more detail about the different types of foods as well. And because I enjoy working with nature positive food producers, I've got podcasts that I've recorded with farmers to help you understand the connection between how our food is grown and our health. And then Katie, my fabulous chef, does all sorts of food demonstrations on the course as well, including a sourdough masterclass, which is just really, really great. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this today, and perhaps I will look forward to meeting some of you soon.